Alright everybody, how we doing today? Final story. I was kind of wondering if this was ever going to happen, but now it has. So, Argentina brands Hezbollah, terrorist organization, and freezes its assets. Again, this is from Reuters. Most of the articles today were. In Buenos Aires, Argentinian authorities designated Hezbollah, which it blames for 2 attacks on its soil, a terrorist organization on Thursday, and ordered the freezing of the Lebanese Islamist group's assets in the country. Unfortunately, Hezbollah is part of the Lebanon government. They are literally, for all intents and purposes, a government organization. So, tread lightly. Tread lightly. You could be doing something that could be seen as an act of war. The announcement coincided with a visit by U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Oh, that guy. As Argentina marks the 25th anniversary of the deadly bombing of a Jewish community center in Buenos Aires in which 85 people died. Argentina blames Iran and Hezbollah for the attack. Both deny any responsibility. Argentina also blames Hezbollah for any attack on the Israeli embassy in Buenos Aires in 1992 that killed 29 people. The Argentine government's Financial Information Unit ordered the freezing of assets of members of Hezbollah and these organizations a day after the country created a new list for people. In a title linked to terrorism, the designation of Hezbollah as a terrorist group was the first by any Latin American country. At present, Hezbollah continues to represent a current threat to security and the integrity of the economic and financial order of the Argentine Republic, the unit said in a statement. There was no immediate comment from Hezbollah on the move. Last year, Argentina froze the assets of 14 members of the Barakat clan, an extended family that officials say has close ties to Hezbollah. U.S. and Argentina officials say Hezbollah operates in what is known as the tri-border area of Argentina, Brazil, and Paraguay, where an illicit economy funds its operations elsewhere. I certainly hope that Argentina did their fact-checking, because if they're wrong, then they could be poking a hornet's nest, needlessly, looking for honey that isn't there. I have overextended that metaphor. I ruined it. Shit, I ruined it. Israel welcomes move. Of course it does. Argentina's decision to freeze Hezbollah assets and join the United States in designating a terrorist group is a significant win for President Donald Trump's administration as it seeks to increase pressure on Tehran and its proxies. The financial impact on Hezbollah will likely be insignificant because it has other sources of funding, said Seth Jones, director of the Transnational Threats Project at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington. What the administration is hoping that even taking little bites out of the apple right now may end up being significant in the long run. If they can continue to freeze assets of organizations like Hezbollah in a range of different countries, Jones said, the United States looking to revive a security relationship that suffered after a souring in diplomatic ties during the previous administration. President Cristina Fernandez used President Mauricio Macri as a partner, particularly as traditional European allies have been slower to offer support amid U.S. tensions with Iran, said Benjamin Guidon, director of Wilson Center's Argentina project in Washington. Clearly, they are not a good replacement for European allies because they don't engage in Iran significantly, so they cannot put on the same commercial and economic pressure as the Europeans. Guidon said of Washington allies in Latin America, but at least it gives the impression that the Trump administration is not standing alone, he said. Other U.S. allies that designate Hezbollah or its military wing a terrorist organization include Canada, Britain, Australia, New Zealand, the European Union, and Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu praised Macri for the designation from Jerusalem. It is time the entire enlightened world understand the grave danger Iran and Hezbollah pose. It is time the entire world stand up against it. Yeah, I think it's time the entire world stand up against the United States and its allies. We're scarier than hell. We're scary as hell. And I mean it. I really do. Personally, if you cannot concretely prove 100% or at least within a reasonable range of doubt that Hezbollah is a terrorist organization and is responsible, then you are doing something that could lead to yet another illegal war or some form of international criminal action. So please keep that in mind, Argentina. Please keep in mind that things are not always what they seem. The people attacking you may not even be Hezbollah. They could just as easily be some other group of Islamic terrorists. So I sincerely hope you've done your fact-checking, as I'm sure I've done mine. But as to which nation is scarier, Iran or the United States, you know the question to that. If you're sane, you know the answer to that question. You know it's us. You know it's the United States. And Argentina may in fact be backing the wrong horse. I just pray you people don't have to end up regretting it in the long run. Nonetheless, if Hezbollah does get its assets freezed and a bunch of countries declare them a terrorist organization, what are they honestly going to be able to do about it? Not much. It'd be interesting to see if their assets get frozen and then the attacks still resume. Then we'll know for certain that it's someone else. Well, we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. Anyway.